Last week, I spoke about the harassment of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen at a DC restaurant and at her home, and the importance of keeping personal lives and politics separate for the sake of maintaining the integrity of our culture and our social fabric. If you start harassing people at their private outings and at their private homes, you're going to create some serious problems and seriously damage our ability to get along despite our political differences. And then, as if right on cue, Congresswoman Maxine marches out on Saturday at some type of toy drive event in Los Angeles and says, no, find Trump administration officials and harass them in their private business and at their private homes.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And don't even let them sleep at their homes, she said.
No peace, no sleep. No peace, no sleep.
And just in case there's any ambiguity, just in case you aren't exactly clear what she means, she appeared on MSNBC later on Saturday to say explicitly, yes, I mean harass these people.
For these members of his cabinet who remain and try to defend him, they're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. They're not going to be able to stop at a gas station. They're not going to be able to shop at a department store. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you.
Now, if you want extremely dangerous cultural conflict, this is how you create extremely dangerous cultural conflict. Albeit on terms not quite strong enough for my full satisfaction, I do have to credit Democratic politicians who recognized that danger and who disagreed with or condemned Maxine Waters publicly. Chuck Schumer did it on the Senate floor.
I strongly disagree with those who advocate harassing folks if they don't agree with you. If you disagree with someone or something, stand up, make your voice heard, explain why you think they're wrong and why you're right. Make the argument. But no one should call for the harassment of political opponents. That's not right. That's not American.
Nancy Pelosi did it via tweet calling for unity in response to a CNN story about Waters calling for harassment. And Steny Hoyer did it in an interview with CNN calling for respect and a rise above Trump's hatefulness. None of these statements are fully to my satisfaction. The language isn't quite as stern as I'd like to see, and they all deflect to Trump as though this is somehow his fault indirectly. But these statements are better than crickets or worse, endorsement of Maxine's commentary. They're all generally aimed in the right direction, even if they aren't as precise as I'd like to see. But as with any gaffe, as with any off-the-cuff remark that might be regrettable, I'm more interested in the response than I am in the original remark itself. If you talk enough, we all say something bad eventually. I'm less interested in what you say on a moment's whim, and I'm more interested in what you say when you've had time to think about it and really consider your reasoning. Will you double down or will you retract? And whatever your decision, will you offer sound thinking or not in doing so? That's what I'm most interested in hearing from Maxine Waters, and we got that opportunity to hear her reflect on her comments after thought in a Monday press conference on Capitol Hill. In her introduction, she did not apologize. She did not back off of her commentary in any way. She blamed Trump for the issues at the border, and she emphasized the value of peaceful protest.
Protesting is what is supported by our Constitution, and in a democracy, you get the right to protest. I believe, again, peaceful protest is the civil way to do it. Peaceful protest is what is supported by the people of this country. But right now, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or you're independent, the people do not like the fact that children are separated from their parents. So what we need to do, we need to all focus on getting this president to come up with a credible plan.
Interesting, she apparently considers peaceful protest and harassment, her word, to be interchangeable things. I wish someone would have asked her, does she in fact consider peaceful protest and harassment to be the same thing? But nobody did. Instead, the first question was about fellow Democrats condemning her, or at least disagreeing with her.
What do you say about Leader Pelosi and Hoyer and Schumer, who've all been critical of your comments today?
They have not been. They had talked about civility from everybody. Don't put this on Nancy Pelosi. Don't put this on anybody. Put it on Trump. Trump is the one who's creating lies, trying to have people believe that I talked about harming people. There's nowhere in my statement, anytime, any place, that we talked about harm.
Okay, I guess that's technically true. You didn't advocate for physical violence, but you did advocate for harassment, and that's what your fellow Democrats are condemning you for, advocating harassment, as Chuck Schumer said verbatim on the Senate floor, and as Nancy Pelosi's tweet links explicitly. Maxine was next asked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders being kicked out of a D.C. restaurant on Friday night, and Maxine claims to have had no knowledge of that at the time of her speech.
One of the places you specifically said to push back for your supporters was at a restaurant, and of course Sarah Huckabee Sanders was kicked out of a restaurant this weekend. Is that what you're looking for people who are in the Trump administration to not be able to go to a restaurant or out to dinner, or did you mean something different?
The restaurateur who decided not to serve or have the person in there is responsible for that. I had nothing to do with that. I don't know him. I didn't know he was not going to serve her. As I've said.
But do you support that?
As I have said, there's going to be ongoing protest, I believe, against this administration.
Now, at her original speaking event, Maxine clearly knew about administration officials getting the boot from restaurants.
You have members of your cabinet that are being booed out of restaurants.
But I suppose when she says booed out of restaurants, she's referring to Kirstjen Nielsen being hassled out of a restaurant by hecklers and not Sarah Huckabee Sanders being asked to leave a restaurant by ownership. In any case, it's frustrating Maxine really didn't answer the core question. Do you support people being heckled or hassled or harassed out of businesses over their political beliefs or not? A reporter did follow up with that question, and Maxine denied advocating that sort of thing altogether.
To go back to his question, do you support kicking out somebody like Sarah Sanders out?
I have nothing to do with the way people decide to protest. Protest is the democratic way, as long as it is peaceful. I believe in peaceful protest. It is guaranteed to you in a democracy. I have no way of telling people how to protest, what they should protest.
Yeah, except for when you did tell them what to protest and how to protest it.
You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
And then followed up by making clear, when I say protest, I mean harassment.
Absolutely harass them.
In closing, asked if she herself had been threatened or harassed after this statement, she kind of conflated protest and harassment and threats in a way that's difficult to understand.
Yes.
Have you received any death threats or any more harassment since you made those statements?
I receive threats all the time. As a matter of fact, there's one person who has been basically charged with and will be standing trial very soon. I don't cry about protests. People protest me all the time. People come to my district office. That's their right. The only time I have anything to say about protests is when they threaten to kill me. Then I turn that in. But otherwise, protest is the American way.
Okay, so you were threatened, but you don't cry about protests. So were you threatened or were you protested? And that's what frustrates me about this whole episode from Maxine. She just throws protests and harassment and threats all in the blender together and just uses the terms interchangeably, such that I can't tell if she even sees a distinction between them. She says, oh, I believe in peaceful protest, but she also calls for the harassment of people, and she never retracts the latter, and she never explains the difference. So fine, Maxine, if you won't explain the rules, I will. These are the rules to which I will hold everyone, from my closest political friends to my most hated political adversaries. You have a right to your speech and to your protest, and you may use your platform or any public platform to express it as much as you like. Protest on the public street, protest in the public park, write letters, make YouTube videos, use your voice until it's so hoarse you can't use it anymore. You do not, however, have a right to other people's privacy or other people's property. You do not not have a right to private businesses like restaurants. You do not have a right to someone else's home. You do not have a right to interrupt someone else's dinner with your protest. You do not have a right to disrupt someone else's home with your protest. You do not have a right to try to ruin someone's private life with your protest. And these are the rules by which we ought to abide, not just because we have respect for what property or venues we have a right to or not, but because we have a common desire to keep the American social and cultural fabric intact. To give you an example of how this plays out, let's say you disagree with this video or any number of the videos I have on my channel, and you decide you're going to make that disagreement known. And let's say you make your own video and you're going to explain to everyone else on YouTube why I'm wrong. You know what happens in that scenario? I probably see the video and I think, that guy or gal has some interesting thoughts, might be fun to discuss them, let's make it happen. And hopefully we have that discussion, and maybe at the end of it we agree somewhat, or maybe we still disagree strongly, but you know what? There isn't going to be any animosity. Alternatively, let's say you disagree with me and you decide I'm going to go to that guy's house and I'm going to yell at him from his sidewalk. In that scenario, you're going to get the Clint Eastwood treatment. Get off my lawn. And I mean literally, like I will take an M1 and I will repeat that line verbatim. The point is this. There are ways to handle our political disagreements that seek solutions and maintain social and cultural peace. And there are ways to handle our political disagreements that are very dangerous and increase animosity and, yes, increase the likelihood of violence. I would never choose the latter. I only prepare for it in anticipation of being encroached upon and having to act defensively. The point is, right now, at this moment, we do have a choice. And if you would like to avoid that type of worst case outcome, choose decency, choose civility, choose respect for the rights of others. Uphold that for yourself and expect it from your friends and enemies alike. As much as I despise Maxine Waters, the politician, I would never disrupt her personal life over it. But understand, Maxine, you are promoting a culture that says I should. So I don't want to hear about it when they're encroaching upon your house and disrupting your private life next time. Because Maxine, you quite literally asked for it. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.